Hello and welcome back. So we were learning about selection tests and how we can make these selection tests based on certain criteria, and why we have to be careful while conducting these selection tests. So as I said in the previous lecture, that selecting the right employee is crucial for three main reasons. The first one being the performance of the individual and performance of the organization depends on this selection, the costs that are involved, and mainly because negligent hiring can be detrimental for the organization. So let's briefly learn about each of these three reasons. The first one is performance. Well, your own performance always depends in part on your subordinates. So, if I am a manager, can I single-handedly perform well? No, it will depend on the performance of the entire team or the group of people I am working with. The people I am hiring or the people who I am selecting for my team, they are not skilled. They are not knowledgeable, they are not ready to learn something new, they are not performing well. So will it not affect my performance as a manager? But it will definitely do, right? So that has to be taken care of, and that is why we are saying that selection has to be done in a very professional manner, and it has to be done in the right way. So employees with right skills will do a better job, while ones without these skills or who are abrasive won't perform effectively, and your own performance and the firm's performance will suffer. So if my subordinates are not coordinating, my subordinates are not working properly, my people or my team is not being productive, not performing well, so that will affect the performance of the manager. And if the managers are not performing well, then directly the department's performance will be hampered. And when departments are not performing well, the organization as a whole can collapse. So that is why we are saying that selection has to be done in a proper manner, because the performance is related to the success of the organization. Whether it's individual performance, whether it's group performance, whether it's performance of a department, that will combine together to become the performance of the organization. The second important point is that cost. So selection is important because it's costly to recruit and hire employees, and hiring and training is costly as it includes the search fee, the interviewing time, the reference checking of people that you are hiring, and travel and moving expenses. So that is why we say that hiring or selecting is a costly affair. And also, once you have selected your people, if they do not require any training, that will save the cost for the organization. But if you are making haphazard hiring, if you are just selecting people without taking test and just bringing in people just to fill in your vacancies, then you will need to train them, and training again is a costly thing. So that will incur additional cost, the cost of hiring plus the cost of training your people. So if you are hiring good people, if you are hiring knowledgeable, skilled people, and if your hiring is done in a professional manner, then you can at least save on the cost of training. The third point that we discussed was the negligent hiring. That is when we are under pressure of hiring people. There are a number of vacancies and we are just in a hurry to, hire people. And that is the tend to make certain mistakes. And that is what is called negligent hiring. And this negligent hiring can be detrimental for the organization, because hiring workers with criminal records, backgrounds, without proper safeguards can cause you a much in your image. It also highlights the need to think through what jobs human requirements really are. What are the requirements for the particular job? For example, a non-rapist isn't likely to appear as a required knowledge skill. So you don't give it in a test. Are you a rapist or you are non-rapist, or ability in a job analysis of any manager. But the screening of such tendencies is obviously required. So that is why we are emphasizing that negligent hiring has to be stopped. It has to be avoided, because that can cause you the image of your organization. Now, the question is how to avoid this negligent hiring. We have understood that what is negligent hiring, but how organizations, how HR departments, HR managers can avoid this negligent hiring. So we can do so by making a systematic effort to gain relevant information about the applicant. So that is where the reference checks come into picture. So you have to gather all the relevant information from reference checks, and you must verify all the documents that are provided to you, be it your academic qualification documents or past experiences documents are there. So you must verify all these documents. Then you can scrutinize all the information supplied by the applicant, and then you can ask them or follow up for certain unexplained gaps or breaks in employment. So if there are certain gap in education, or if there are certain gaps or breaks in employment, you must ask the applicant that why did you take this break, and then verify those facts and verify the information that is given to you by the applicant, because he definitely will not come up with the truth always if it's something wrong he has done. So he will not maybe admit it. He will certainly deny, but that whatever information he is giving to you, you must verify and scrutinize that information. Then you must also keep a detailed log of all the attempts to obtain information, be it the names, the dates for phone calls or other requests. So whatever phone calls you have been doing, just keep a detailed log of all this. Then you must reject the applicants who make false statements of material facts or who have conviction records for offences directly related and crucial to your job. That must be done right away without giving a second thought. You must just simply reject the applicants who make false statements regarding the material facts on the basis of what you are going to recruit him. So if somebody is lying and you have come to know that he is lying, you must reject those applications. Then balancing the applicant's privacy rights with others need to know, especially when you discover damaging information. So if you are aware that the applicant has certain we can say blind spots or some negative information you have come across, then you must not think about the privacy rights of the applicant, and you must try to balance that with your right, because you as an organization must know about all the personality aspects of the candidate. And then if any further problem arises, you must take immediate disciplinary action, and that is how we can reduce or avoid negligent hiring. So when it comes to selection or effective selection, there are certain barriers or challenges that are faced by the HR managers. So we all know that the main objective of selection is to hire people having competence and commitment. Now, what are the barriers to effective selection? This objective is often defeated because of certain barriers. The barriers which check effectiveness of selection are the perception, fairness, validity, reliability, and external pressure. So what do we mean by perception? Perception basically means that it is our inability to understand others accurately is probably the most fundamental barrier to selecting the right candidate. So we at times have our own preconceived notions, we are using our own perceptions while selecting. So these perceptions can either make us select the wrong candidate or reject the right candidate. So that is why having this perception can be a barrier to effective selection. And selection demands an individual or a group of people to assess and compare respective competencies of others with the aim of choosing the right persons for the job. So the core idea behind selection is that right person for the job must be found out of the pool of candidates. And when you are bringing in your own perception that this particular person will not be able to do this job or this particular person will be able to do a particular job, so that perception can lead to choosing the wrong candidate. And what happens is that our views are highly personalized. So we all perceive the world differently because we have our own, can say, ideas, opinions, experiences. So everybody has their own experiences and we tend to bring those views while selecting. So our limited perceptual ability is obviously a stumbling block to objective and rational selection of people. So this perceptual ability should not hinder our decisions, and the decision of selection must be done in a very professional, intelligent manner. The second topic is fairness. In selection, it requires that no individual should be discriminated on the basis of religion, region, race, or gender. And we have seen that there are low numbers of women and other less privileged sections of society in middle and top management, that is what is known as glass ceiling for women especially. We hardly see women in top management positions, and this suggests that all efforts to minimize inequity have not been very effective. So that fairness in selection has to be done. We must not bring in religion while selecting people, region while selecting, race or gender, and that also leads to, we can also correlate it to perception also, that I as a female may think that I should hire more of female for this particular job. So that is again perception and fairness. So that means I am not being fair to the other gender, right? So this has to be taken care of, and any biases should be avoided. The third is the validity. So we have already learnt about validity. So it is a test that helps predict job performance of an incumbent, and a test that has been validated can differentiate between the employees who can perform well and those who will not. So the person who scores well is the one who is going to perform well, and people who score less on the test will not be some great performance. So however, a validated test does not predict job success accurately. It can only increase the possibility of that success. So validation has to be done, but you cannot 100% rely on the validity of a test. Then is reliability. That also we have learned that what is reliability. A reliable method is one which will produce consistent results when repeated in a similar situations. So like a validated test, a reliable test may fail to predict job performance with precision. So these two are validity and reliability. They are important, but we cannot 100% rely on these. Next is pressure. So in negligent hiring, we are at times under pressure. So pressure is brought on the selectors by politicians, by bureaucrats, by relatives, friends, peers to select a particular candidate. So the candidates that are selected because of compulsions are obviously not the right ones. So that is why we were talking of negligent hiring. And appointments, especially in the public sector undertakings, they are generally done under pressure, because there, in that scenario, there is a pressure of politicians, of bureaucrats to hire someone of their choice. So that pressure should not be there, but at times these are inevitable, but one should avoid hiring somebody who is who is unskilled, untrained, not knowledgeable, and who has some dark past. So that pressure must not be there on the selectors if you have to make some effective selection for your organization. Now we are going to learn of certain strategies of effective selection. So by now we have understood the criticality of employee selection. So organizations should do whatever it takes to make it effective. So we are going to learn about some 4 techniques of selecting process that are worth giving a try. So the first one that we are going to talk is the competency based hiring. So an individual's core competencies are determined by 2 groups of factors. We hire people for their skill, knowledge and technical qualification, and also for their behavioral characteristics, that is the personality attributes and their individual aptitudes. So these are the 2 competencies that we hire people for. So we can say that these are the core competencies. So skills, knowledge, technical qualification and the behavioral aspects. Now, although the traditional hiring has focused primarily on evaluating a candidate's skills and technical qualification, but in a competency based approach, it includes the analysis of a candidate's behavioral characteristics as well. So in the competency based hiring, we are not only concentrating, or we are not only focusing on the skills and the technical qualification of an individual, but we are also taking into consideration their behavior, their personality, because these are the traits that cannot beat your skills. Emotional intelligence of an individual, ability to learn, ability to adapt, ability to handle stress, these are more important than skills and any other qualification, because skills and qualifications can be improved, but these take a large amount of time. You cannot develop emotional intelligence in a crash course, but you can certainly learn some new skills. You can certainly improve your technical qualification, for example, but you cannot overnight learn emotional intelligence. You cannot learn how to adapt to change, problem solving. These are things that you cannot learn overnight. They are a part of your personality. You cannot change your personality for that matter overnight. So apart from your skills and technical qualifications or your knowledge, what is important is the candidate's behavioral characteristics. That is the key of the competency based hiring approach. So the competency based hiring is grounded in the identification of core competencies required for the success and evaluation of each candidate's demonstration of those competencies in their past experiences. So how in the past you have applied emotional intelligence, how in the past you applied your adaptability, how in the past you applied problem solving. So that is a part of the competency based hiring. From a hiring perspective, there are 2 different kinds of core competencies. First is the position specific and the other is the organizational. So what do we mean by position specific competencies? They refer to the abilities and behavioral characteristics which are required for the success in a specific role. So they are role specific or position specific, and these characteristics may include attributes of an individual's work style, personal qualities such as being analytical, being resourceful, being flexible, creative, innovative in your job. So that is what we mean by a position specific competency. The second is the organizational competency, and it means that how your qualities and your attributes can lead to the success of your organization, how you are a fit for your organization, or the other way around, how you may not be a fit for your organization. So these competencies include fit with the organization's management style, risk tolerance, work pace, employee demographics, and the physical environment. So these are the organizational competencies, and they play a major role in determining what type of people will fit in an organization regardless of their specific roles. So here we are not talking of what is my role in the organization. Here we are talking of how I am a fit for that particular organization and not the job. For example, a bureaucratic or an autonomous manager may not succeed in a management role at a highly entrepreneurial non-profit where all decisions are made by consensus. So if you are a manager who believes in decision making himself and does not want to include many people in the decision making process, and you come and work for maybe an entrepreneur, which is a non-profit entrepreneurship, so there the all decisions are made by consensus. There is a democratic decision making is there. So there you may not, you may be a fit for the job you are performing, but you may not be the fit for that particular management, because your personality will not match the management role or the organization's style of working. So there you become a misfit. So together these traits help prepare a competency framework that forms the basis for selection team and interviewers to identify the questions to be asked, criteria to be considered while hiring is to be done. So the second aspect is the training interviewers. So interviews will be done in some subsequent lecture. So when you are interviewing people, as an interviewer, you also need to be trained. So because interview is most commonly used technique to hire people. After selection test, you shortlist people from that selection test and then you conduct interviews. But how to conduct an interview? This fact emphasizes upon the role of the interviewer in the selection process. An interviewer must be trained on these points as training on fundamental interviewing process, that what is the process of interviewing like. So that interviewer must also be aware of it. And it should include instructions like how to start the interview, placing the candidate at ease, breaking the ice, making him comfortable, clarifying upon the job description, providing accurate information about the organization, and closing the interview by giving the information about what is going to be the next steps that are going to be taken. So the interviewer must be aware of all these things. Then the interviewer must be discover broad theoretical concepts and specific skills for role in candidate. So these theoretical concepts help an individual visioneer, and skills enable him or her to discharge their job effectively. So the interviewer must be evaluating the knowledge about the candidate. Then while interviewing, the interviewer must shed any personal biases that impact selection decisions. So we have discussed about how perceptions, how personal biases, they do creep in while we are selecting. So certain biases can be gender bias, making decisions based on one's perception of one gender being able to perform better than other. So the interviewer must be trained that he should not bring in gender bias or age bias for that matter. That is perception about the age of the candidate impacting decision to select or reject her. I say that, okay, you are 40, 45, I think you won't be able to do this job. So I am bringing my personal bias into selection. That must be avoided. Then race, ethnicity, caste, it is the belief where heredity of a candidate determines selection or rejection. Then stereotypes, then projections, the tendency of interview to judge a candidate by own attributes. So if I feel that, okay, I am a punctual person and the candidate who is coming for the interview is also a punctual person, so I project my personal attributes in him and I feel, okay, he is the perfect candidate for this job, just based on this assumption. So the interviewer has to be trained on all these aspects. Then active listening also has to be something that we all need to learn, and as an interviewer you must try and learn active listening. It is one trait that people generally lack, but the interviewer should possess the art of listening. He should strive to understand, comprehend and gain insight into what is only implied or suggestive. Active listening can help the interviewer frame subsequent questions. So when I am asking a question to the candidate, he answers me back from whatever he is answering me. I can frame my subsequent question, but that can only be done if I am actively listening to what my candidate is telling me. If I am not listening to whatever he is trying to say, I am not comprehending whatever he is trying to say, I may not frame some good questions that could have been asked. So that active listening has to be something that every interviewer must be trained for. Then type of questions to be asked. So interviewers are the brand ambassadors of organization, and the type and the way the questions are posed, they also leave a lasting impression on the candidate. So if you are asking them irrelevant questions, or we can say too many questions related to their personal lives, they can be not very good, or they cannot leave a good impression in the mind of the candidate. So what questions you are asking and how you are asking, how you are framing your questions, that is also very important, and every interviewer must be trained about how to ask, how to frame questions and how to put those questions, so that you get maximum knowledge, maximum information from the candidate. Then selection and rejection may not matter to the candidate, but what matters is how the candidate was treated during the interview. So this is very important, how you are treating the people who are coming to your organization, because as an interviewer you are the brand ambassador, as I said, of the organization. They do not know the organization, but they do know, they are building a rapport with you, right? So if you are ill treating, or you are maybe trying to be rude, so the candidate will take a wrong image for the organization. So care should be taken also to avoid in-depth questions on personal life of the candidate. Then also we need to take care of the culture fitment. So this is again a strategy which can bring in effective selection, that is assessing the culture fitment. So selection process should ascertain the culture fit between the candidate and the organization, as I already stated. So mere skills are not enough. The individuals hired, they should gel with the norms, the standards, the environment, the culture of the organization. That is very important. If he or she is unable to adopt these values, they are not in sync with the culture of the organization, no matter how skilled, how knowledgeable you are, you will not be able to perform well. So a hiree may be highly competent, but his or her behaviors might clash with the values of the organization. Then the next is the selection of the team or panel. The role of the selection team is very critical in making employee hiring highly effective. The team ensures that right procedures, right processes are in place, and they are also implemented in the right spirit. So the selection team must ensure that the hiring team is accountable for the right person in the right job, and most importantly at the right time. So the timing is also important. If you get the right person for the right job, but the process has been so long and you are unable to bring him to your organization, and by the time the candidate gets an offer from some other organization, so that timing is also important. So friends, today we learnt about the criteria for selection tests, namely the reliability, validity, objectivity and standardization. We also learnt that what is the importance of careful selection. The 3 points that we learnt, that it's the performance, the cost, and because negligent hiring is detrimental for the organization's health. We also learnt about how we can avoid negligent hiring by making reference checks and conducting appropriate tests. We also learnt about the barriers to effective selection, namely perception, fairness, validity, reliability and pressure. So, these are the barriers that are faced by the organizations or hiring managers while taking effective decisions. And we also learnt about certain strategies of effective selection, namely competency based hiring, training the interviewer, assessing the cultural fit and the selection team or panel. So, that is all for this lecture. So, in the next lecture we are going to learn about interviews. So, what are interviews and how interviews can be made effective? Thank you.